I never met my dad. My mom was an addict. I was eventually adopted, right? Kicked out of that house at 17. I was on my own for like all of senior year. Graduated early so I could get into the Marine Corps. Graduated in January, went to boot camp in May. My name is Nick Racioppi. I'm a staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I additionally do comedy and stand-up on my off time. That's like my true path. Is what it feels like, is into the entertainment business. But I'm a father of two, husband to one, and yeah, living life, just doing me. Originally, I'm from New Jersey. Enlisted back in 2012. Went to boot camp down in South Carolina, Parris Island. So originally my MOS was 0311, to which I came to the fleet. I was in 2nd Battalion, 9th Marines, Golf Company originally. Then we moved over to Fox for our deployment to Libya, and then stayed in Fox until they disbanded. I went to 1-8 after that, and then decided to make a career change and went into the information realm. Altogether, that schooling for the infantry is about 2 months, and then after that, once I did my lateral move, that's another 3 or 4 months. Really, that one just depends on the scheduling of some of your supplemental courses, but like your Q course, it's about 2 months. So it was originally 0521. Now it has since changed to 1751, which is information or influence specialist. Covers psychological operations and civil affairs. Man, so definitely had some highs. I've definitely had some lows. As far as places I've been, so I'm extremely lucky when it comes to the military. Because I did the lateral move, I've been on Camp Lejeune for all 11 years, which is insane, right? That's unheard of. But I had essentially went through 4 deployments in the infantry, and then I've done another 2, 3 if you really count one of them. But I've been to Libya was my first deployment. Then we went on the UDP for my second deployment, and that's the essentially Pacific roundabout. So you'll visit Korea, south, not north. You'll go to the Philippines, mainland Japan. A lot of the like interoperability deployment style things. After that, we went to the Special Purpose MAGTAF, which was located in Italy at the time. So we got to visit Europe a little bit and go down to Africa for some missions. After that was another UDP, which was my final infantry deployment. The UDP was in the Pacific, so back in Okinawa again. And then my 5th deployment was in, where the hell was I? Spain. And then we would go down to Africa from there, as also part of the Special Purpose MAGTAF. My final deployment was a MEU. I was trying to avoid those, but they locked me in a tuna can and sent me over to Europe for a little bit. But as far as varying degrees of like emotional and physical highs and lows, man, you get a wave of all of those emotions. Pretty much all the way through your workup on deployment, all the way through like getting home and still trying to struggle to like get everything back together. Because there is a honeymoon phase, especially when you've had kids. And I've essentially been married the whole career I've had. I've been in a relationship with my wife the whole time I've been enlisted. So moving and deploying and, you know, having kids in the in-betweens, and the highs are your friends, everybody's working really well together, your relationships are nailed and drilled in, and the lows are just everything's out of whack, man. You try and come back, and I'm not gonna sit here and say it's like hard to adjust sometimes, but what happens is when you deploy, life doesn't pause, but for you it kind of does, right? So everything you're kind of dealing with has to kind of stay put with you, unless it's something that's solvable. But for the most part, life moves on. and you're like, you have to come back home and kind of re-deal with life. Like, what is babysitting? You know, I've been in a barracks room or like on a metal ship in the berthing for the last 7 months, and now I have to worry about who's watching my kids. Yeah, mentors kind of through my career. There was one dude, Dennis Gilday. That dude will forever hold a spot in my heart and in my brain. So when I had first hit the fleet, I was kind of in between. So I was between weapons as an 0311 and golf, because the rest of the companies, I think, were just getting back from Afghanistan, or like they were on leave and the ball had just happened, something like that. So when I was received to the unit, it was a skeleton crew. And I've got those like first, you know, you're hearing all the stories at SOI and stuff of like what happens when you get to a unit. So I'm like panicked, you know. It's like fresh meat to a prison, you know. Yeah, some guys that are like licking their lips, but then the other guys are like crunching their knuckles, you know. You're like, I don't know if this is gonna be at the same time. Like, please don't do this all at once. So getting to the unit back then, who was once Sergeant Gilday, he was the first person to give me just the right enough, or just the right amount of tough love and forgiveness, which I had never really received. So, backstory: my my parenting situation was not ideal growing up. Never really met my dad, so like I was always kind of latching on to male figures that I saw as like good influences. Some didn't work out that way, you know, and I would then ebb and flow with male role models. But this guy, Dennis Gilday was he's a meat eater, you know. He was like a recon indoc guy. He had like always strived to really kind of push his infantry career forward. I see him every once in a while, but he was the first dude that, like, because I got NJP'd when I was like in my first year for underage drinking. What was crazy is he was the first dude to like not look at me sideways after it. Like I got my punishment, and it was like, you know, for the next 2 weeks you're gonna be essentially bitch boy for the platoon or for the squad, you know. And then once it was over, it was over. It was like, oh, well, we can't hold this over his head forever, you know? Like, let the guy get some distance between him and the incident. Let's see if he can grow. And we went to Bridgeport, which, if you guys don't know, is like cold weather training for a lot of infantry units. Going there, having the incident, dude, that was the worst spot to be bitch boy. Because if you've never been to Bridgeport before, the mountain warfare training, it's mountainous. You're carrying a lot of shit on top of the shit you already have to standardly carry. So you have this like 80 to 90 pound pack. At the time, I'm ribs and dick, dude. I'm like 140 pounds. If I suck in, you could probably see my spine. You know, I'm this 18-year-old, 19-year-old little spunky kid. We get there, and I'm like, I have the sled, which attaches around your waist. It's got 2 poles, and then essentially all of your camping equipment per the fire team. If you don't know, fire team is 4 people. I'm carrying it for mine. And then I had recently gotten promoted to team leader. So I got fucked. And normally, so this was back in the day, it was like cool to earn certain weapon suites, right? Shows you had put in work. And so I get team leader, okay? But because I'm a junior dude, everybody else, all the other team leaders, they had 203s, which is the grenade launcher, on their M4s, which are just smaller classical M16. My stupid ass, I had the boomstick M16 with a 203 and the sled, and dude, I looked like Ralphie's brother in The Christmas Story, just layered up with everything. They were like, you're gonna carry all of this shit, you know? Yeah, man, it was the most brutal environment that I think I've been in, where like if you didn't pay attention to how much water you were consuming, how much sleep you were getting, like that mountain will take your life, you know? And yeah, he got me through it, and that was a big roundabout way. I told you I like to talk, so I'm gonna be storying you up. But yeah, Dennis, I would say Dennis Gilday is definitely one of my mentors. He he's funny too, because like he would do the right amount of fucking around. So when we eventually got on our deployment to Libya, he was so down to just like fuck around. But then when it was like time to get serious, like it was like everybody had to be locked in. And there was one time we were doing a quick reaction drill, which is, you know, essentially a simulated event, right, where a team may have to react to a specific scenario on an embassy. And dude, I went to the wrong fucking post with the other goober in the fucking the other goober in the squad. Okay? So the drill's over. We're sitting there, we're like, we haven't heard anybody say anything. And it's funny because this is still to this day. So this was like 10 years ago. And to this day, my boy will still call me 3 Bravo. A lot of them will. And the post was 3 Bravo. Okay? We call back and we're like, yo, is it index? Like, are we done? I'm telling you, everybody was at fucking lunch. Already done. And me and this fucking idiot are sitting there, just a pair of fucking dumb fucks. Like, oh man, I don't know what's going on. Like, why did they... Yeah, man, one, we went to the wrong position. 2, we weren't checking radios. 3, I'm sitting here trying to bounce a good idea off of a not so good idea ferry, you know? And I'm like, all right, I call it, and like we go back, and I'm telling you, we were clowned on the rest of the deployment, you know? And this was like, I don't know, maybe week fucking 5 or 6 in the deployment. This was very early, you know? I've always been just an idiot enough to get me in trouble. And I've had to since learn through mentors when to keep my mouth shut, and like when, and you know, timing, and there's always a when and where. And I'm a knucklehead, so it took me a while to get through to that, but I'm getting there. So as a cool staff NCO, it's the hip thing to do to get a DWI. So I was like, let me hop on that right after my first month. No, obviously it wasn't by it wasn't by design, okay? But life happens, you know, and yeah, getting a DWI is wild. Thankfully, mine got dismissed. If you've watched some of my comedy, that is true. I do remember, so this happened like right before I was about to go on a deployment, and I had just gotten to my deploying unit at the time, right? I'd only been with them for like maybe 2 weeks, and it's like real awkward when you have to talk to the higher ups, and the first conversation is, hey, you remember that thing that everybody really hates? Well, that's me right now, and I'm that guy, you know? So getting past that stigma was like very hard. And truthfully, the whole deployment, I didn't flip anybody, if that makes sense, you know? Like, people are already gonna see me as like this staff NCO fuck up, you know? And they're gonna see me as the guy who drinks heavily, okay? My issue, and I'm gonna put my coffee down for this, my issue with that is, everybody always has these stigmas. Sorry, my voice keeps changing. Never let them know your next move. The stigma is that once you get a DWI, your career's over, you know? And that's not necessarily the case. I think people can take steps to, just like I did back in 2013 with my NJP, you can kind of put time between you and the event, right? I haven't had a drink since that day. Higher headquarters Marine Corps will never understand the gravity of that, you know? So when you start talking organizations, people can recover from those things. Now, I will say, some people in the Marine Corps will, based off their prior bias, not allow Marines to progress after that. They will always pin them as, you're supposed to be a staff NCO. Like, this is on you. I don't want you in my Marine Corps. So in my eyes, it's very hypocritical sometimes for them to people will call this organization a brotherhood. Some people will refer to it as a business. Others will refer to it as a fraternity, right? And I think based off of how you've been mentored and how your career has kind of elongated or kind of worked itself out, you get these very strict or not so strict superiors, So to put distance between myself and the incident, I go through the deployment. I do the best I can. I'm what you qualify as a fighter. I like a good underdog story. So that's all it felt like to me was, all right, well, what's the next thing? Let's move on from this. It's kind of looming over my shoulder, the whole deployment, and I'm like emailing my lawyers and trying to get everything updated. Results came back. Turns out I am him. No. Blood alcohol level was below. Dude, I had that end of Breakfast Club moment. I'm fucking throwing I thought everything was clear. Still received some negative paperwork for it. Not entirely bad, but okay, it was. The whole thing is entirely bad. But based off the superior's decision in that moment, I'm still getting affected by it. Not saying I shouldn't be affected by it. It was something that happened. There are repercussions, and I understand that, right? I do think, according to the Marine Corps, some of the things that the organization tries to instill is subjective to the person or people placed in charge of Marines who fuck up, This organization loves to brand itself and essentially, we don't fuck up, which is a very old mentality. Now, information is everywhere. It's like the government being upset that people are finding out that the fucking vaccine doesn't work. Information is available, right? It's going to be known, especially in the areas immediate to Marine Corps bases, that incidents like this happen. So for you to act like it doesn't happen or try and paint this model picture of a Marine, that's cool and all. Some guys will live up to it. Not all. And some of the best Marines I've ever met are guys with a rocky past, When we started the interview, you asked me what are some of the highs and lows. Dude, you want to talk about depression. I was in it. And I was just starting comedy. So I'm doing stand-up. I have a routine of doing a beer and a shot to edge the nerves. Now I'm revisiting comedy, sober, trying to get on stage, dealing with the emotions before that, dealing with all the negative stuff that's happening to me at work, right? Downward spiral. And then I deploy. I essentially throw everything onto my wife. We got 2 kids, some dogs, some cats. She's stressed the hell out. It's a very low point. But now that'll be 2 years in December. December 9th was when it happened. Now being 2 years removed from it, it's getting easier. That's all it is. Time heals all of that. But as far as, it's still affecting me, it does. It's affected me in the right way. And I know that there are different avenues I could have went down, but I didn't. I'm also a glutton for pain, so like re-enlisting in the Marine Corps, in my eyes, I want to see if I can still get promoted, just so I could be like one of those people to a younger generation. Like, you can get a DWI and recover. You can fumble the bag and still go, you know? Because although I felt like I wasn't necessarily afforded the opportunity to push past the DWI in that current command, I wasn't necessarily afforded the opportunity. I kind of started at a deficit. I wasn't expecting to change their minds, but going forward, my parent command, those are the people that I wanted to like, trust me, I'm still here. Like I'm working, I'm diligent, you know? And that's the thing, is like, it can go either way, you know? A lot of guys will curl up and kind of crumble under the stress, which is understandable. A lot of that shit's crushing, especially, I'm very fortunate where nobody was hurt, and it was kind of like I fucked up, but it's all my own shit. You start getting into where like people have hit people, or, you know, the scenario gets a little bit more malicious. Those are a lot harder to come back from, but for the most part, it was a dig at my judgment, which at the time I was almost 30, so it was like time to start. Maybe we shouldn't be drinking on the weekdays. And so now I'm almost 2 years sober. And look at me, huh? Super successful, nose still crooked, pockets light, broke as ever, you know? Yeah. So the band on my wrist is a memorial band for my buddy Jacob Matthews. He passed away 2015. So we had all went to SOI together. They went to 1-6. Him, my buddy Travis Langan, my other buddy who was in my unit, Kevin Shepard, Edgar Tabal Rodriguez, Josh Ringel, all of us. We were all hanging out, group of boys. As what I define as like the first group of the boys, as I like to refer to. We all still talk to each other, and we're all still very close. We wound up catching up with him. So he was in 1-6, and they had went on a MEU while we went on our first deployment. They get back from the MEU a little bit after us. We hadn't seen pretty much any of us through the workups and stuff like that for over about a year and a half. And we noticed our buddy, we all have the homecoming phase, right? And if you guys don't know, when you get kind of back from deployment, especially if you haven't had too much outside interaction, if you're in a mountainous terrain or stuck to a MEU, right? You don't really get out too much. You'll get liberty ports and stuff like that on a MEU, but it's still like, you guys have 3 days, we're here, like, and your hours are still limited. We all get back. We all have aggressive drinking problems. We're, 21 at the time, so like, just able to go to bars, just able to like kind of buy alcohol, bring it to the house. Or one of my last times seeing him was at a house party at my house, and we're all hanging out. We noticed he was a little bit more reckless than the rest of us. It's how we had all kind of grew up. Matty Boy was essentially cut to PMO, which if you don't know is like the main gate. He was about to be getting out, so he was working as one of the gate guards for Camp Lejeune. And he had some ins and outs, so drinking and driving had not been necessarily an issue for him sometimes. Uber didn't really exist back then, although taxis were around. So he would eventually pass away, rolling his car, drinking and driving. And we had just seen him probably 2 days prior. Some of my buddies were out with him that night, hoping that he would take a taxi. They had even ordered him a taxi. Nobody had heard from him the day of, and we see a car had rolled at one of the T intersections, and he passed away. We found out during a work day. We tried reaching out to his family. We would eventually, they would have a service for him. Forget what I was doing that day. Tried making it out. And he, through the similar decisions that I had made later on in my life, he wasn't able to walk away from it. I kind of wear this memorial band for him. One, so I can share my story and his story with my kids. A lot of people will think these are like the new dog tags. Like, oh, is this your information? No. You kind of have to explain. My biggest regret is not being able to say bye to him. He kind of Irish goodbyed me that time at the party. I got much love for the kid. He holds a special place in our heart, all of us. We when my buddy got married, I'm saying we, is his fucking wedding. He had a memorial spot for him. We had a really good moment at the wedding. Kind of did a memorial for him. We all cried about it and went right back to the heavy drinking the way he wanted us to. So that was fun. And now it's more, I think, of celebration, you know. Do the things that he would have wanted us to do and live the lives of like what we think he would have expected, you know. And I think that's the reason I still wear the band. Sometimes it's harder. Life can kind of bog you down a little bit, but it's moving, you know. And those habits can be hard to kick. And I think it's not until you're in it that's when you're willing to make the change. Like the DWI was the closest I've been to rock bottom. It was a game changer for me. I realized same thing could have happened to me as it did to Maddie, and I could have definitely not come home, and that would have been terrible, you know. And now I have 2 fatherless kids. For what? So I could drink on a fucking Thursday? No way. I wouldn't trade my life for that anywhere, you know? Well, you guys can catch me on Instagram. I wanted to immediately look to the camera. Fucking follow me. No, you can find me at Nicked at Night. Nicked, Nicked _AT, not the at symbol. Don't fucking do that shit. _night, spelt normal, like day, night. NIGHT. And I almost didn't spell it correctly, which happens all the time because I'm an idiot, and that's just how things work. But look, if you want to come have a laugh, you can find me down in Wilmington. I just competed for Port City's Top Comic. I didn't make it, mostly because I'm not that funny. I'm just a little bit funny. But for the most part, you can catch me anywhere in North Carolina. I will be at Waterline, depending on when this comes out, on July 19th. I'll be doing 10 minutes there, Waterline Brewing, Wilmington, North Carolina. And then after that, I will be hosting somewhere and being somewhere else. So we're trying to get this thing in Hooligans jumping off the comedy show no one asked for, August 25th. So we'll be doing that again. We're trying to ramp it up and make it a little bit less lengthy, but more fun. I know a lot of people like doing that niche thing where they're like, yo, check out this up-and-coming dude. You know? Do that to me. Do that to me. Look at this fucking up-and-coming unibrow with a fucking giant crooked nose. This guy's super funny. He's got charisma, or riz, as you fucking young fucks like to say. Follow him, you know? Support it. Do that. You know what the fuck I'm talking? I haven't looked at you this whole fucking time.